this crazy world, it's so hard to unwind. So I'm taking time just for me. Gonna find my peace, let my soul be free. In the quiet moments, that's where I'll find a little room to breathe and leave it all behind. Give me room to breathe, I need some time to heal my heart, to clear my mind. Gonna love myself, yeah, I believe in the power of me. Just give me room to breathe.
Great new day to all my self-care friends and family. Welcome back to another Room to Breathe podcast. I am your host, Life Coach 614, and I am so happy that you've made space to be here with us today. Now, before we get into today's episode, I need everyone to do me a quick favor. If you're feeling the vibes, go ahead and show some love. Tap the screen, like, comment, but most importantly, I need for everyone to share this out with someone who could use a little healing energy today. And if this is your first time here or you haven't already done so, go ahead, hit that follow button. Subscribe to our channel so that way you are always tapped in when a new episode drops. I also want to personally invite you to check out our digital home at theselfcareclub.org, where you will find everything you need from affirmative apparel to motivational merch, as well as a ton of free resources to help nourish your growth and remind you that you are supported every step of the way. Just know that you don't have to do this alone. We are healing in community, growing one breath, one moment, one day at a time. So today, I encourage you to give yourself permission to make space for peace, for growth, but most importantly, for you. And remember, if anything in today's episode hits home, be sure to drop those green hearts in the chat. That is our community's way of saying I am healing, I am growing, and I am showing up for me. Now, let's get ready to breathe, reflect, and grow together. Now, family, of course, today is Wednesday, and you know I like to give us a word of the week on Wednesdays. So today is no different. We are going to start things off to introduce the new word. So let me go ahead and pin this in the chat for you guys. Give me just a second. We got it going on over here. Let me make sure YouTube know what we're talking about today. All right. So our word for today is Entelechy. En-TEL-uh-kee. Entelechy. Can you guys add that to the chat for me? Entelechy. And y'all like, what? What is this word? What does that mean? All right. So listen, Entelechy. This is a word that I want you guys to sit with. And, you know, I want you to sit with it because I'm not just giving you a word to sound deep. I'm giving you something to live through. And I think that this one right here, this one's not just a word, right? This is a whole journey. This word is a whole process. This is a becoming. Okay? A lot of us have been introduced into a lot of us have been introduced to ourselves through survival, right? Through what we had to make it through what we had to keep, what we had to do to keep the peace, through the versions of ourselves that knew how to shrink, adjust, overgive, right? Enough silence. Welcome in. We learned how to overstay, right? All the things that we learned how to do just to feel safe and seen and accepted. So when we hear, something like becoming who you're meant to be, it sounds beautiful, but it can sound a bit unfamiliar because if we're honest, some of us don't know who that version of us is yet, right? We know who we had to be. We know who people expected us to be. We know who we became just to survive certain seasons. But who you are, when you're no longer operating from pain, who you are when you're no longer reacting from old wounds, who you are when you're no longer shrinking to maintain connections, that's where this word comes in. Entelechy. The word Entelechy means becoming the version of yourself that you were always meant to be. Becoming the version of yourself that you were always meant to be. Not the version that was shaped in survival, not the version shaped by other people's expectations, not the version that learned how to cope in your present environment or your past environment, I should say. I'm talking about the version of you that exists beyond the trauma, beyond the hurt, beyond the fear, beyond the limitations. Conquering Walls, welcome in. Just in time for our word of the week, Entelechy. Thank you. So again, Entelechy is beyond the trauma, beyond the hurt, beyond the limitations, beyond the fear, beyond the narratives that told you to stay small. And let me be real with you. That version of you was not created overnight, right? This is the version of you that has been revealed over time through healing, through boundaries, through uncomfortable decisions, through choosing yourself in moments where the old you would have chosen familiarity instead. So today is not just learning a new word. It's about recognizing who you are becoming. Are you still operating from survival, or are you stepping into alignment even when it feels unfamiliar? Because becoming him or becoming her is not just about perfection, right? It's about intention. It is about awareness. Sweetheart Marks, welcome in. It is about deciding who you were is not where your story ends. And so today we're going to talk about what it really looks like to become. Not, the highlight reel version, not the social media version of becoming, but the real, raw, sometimes uncomfortable process of evolving into yourself. So I want you guys to take a breath, drop your shoulders, breathe in through your nose, exhale from your mouth. Again, drop those shoulders. And I want you to release whatever you walked in here carrying. Let it go. Let it flow. And let's go ahead and breathe together one more time. Inhale. And exhale. All right. So I want to start the conversation by simply stating that you were always more than what you settled into. And I think that it is important to start here because I feel like there are a lot of people walking around thinking this is just who I am. But is it? Is this just who you are, or is this who you had to become to survive what you went through? Because there is a difference. Some of y'all didn't choose certain traits. You adapted to them. You learned how to become low maintenance because every single time you expressed a need, it was ignored, dismissed, or you were left to feel like you were asking for too much. So now you pride yourself on not needing anything. But deep down, you've just gotten used to going without everything. You call yourself independent, but if we were to peel back, the layers, is it really independence? Or is it the result of being let down so many times that you stopped expecting support altogether? You say that you're unbothered, but is that peace or is it emotional shutdown? Because I think that sometimes what we label as our personality is really just our protection. And I need you to hear me, and I want you to hear this fully without judgment. There is nothing wrong with how you adapted. That version of you did what he or she had to do in order to get through it, right? So you figured it out. You held it together and you survived things that could have broken you. but survival versions are not meant to be permanent identities. And I want to say that again because I need for the people on the outside to hear me. Survival versions are not meant to be permanent identities. We're going to add that to the chat. Somebody said, post it, pin it in the chat. Listen, what kept you safe back then might be what's keeping you stuck now. That overthinking, it used to protect you from being blindsided, but now it's keeping you anxious. That people pleasing, yeah, it used to help you maintain connections, but now it's costing you your authenticity. The emotional distance, it used to keep you from getting hurt, but now it's blocking your intimacy, your connection, your softness. And I think that this is where Entelechy comes in, right? Because Entelechy is the reminder that there is more in you than what you had to become. There is a version of you that is not operating from fear, not operating from past pain, not operating from what if this happens again. There is a version of you that is grounded and whole and aligned. And you know, the truth is you can meet them. You can meet that version of you. But you can't meet that version of you if you keep clinging to the version of you that was built in survival mode. And look, I'm not even going to front. I know it's hard, right? I know it's hard because I am in my own season of becoming. So there are times when it is difficult for me to meet the grounded coach, right? Because the crash out girl still exists. She's still in there. She still wants attention. And you know, it's easy for us to kind of slide back and forth because survival feels familiar, right? Survival you knows how to navigate chaos. Survival you knows how to read a room, how to adjust, how to stay safe. But this becoming you, that version of you requires trust. It requires release. It requires you to let go of habits that once protected you, but now no longer serve you. Elevated Awakenings, Kale, welcome in, beautiful. And so, you know, that can make you feel like you're losing yourself when you have grown so comfortable sitting in that survival mode, right? And it makes you feel like you're losing yourself when really you're actually finding yourself. So I want you guys to sit with this question. Who did I become to survive? And who am I becoming now that I don't have to live in that version of me anymore? Who did I become to survive? And who am I becoming now that I don't have to live in that version of me anymore? And so again, I want you to know that you were always more than what you settled into. You were always more than the roles that you played. More than the labels that you accepted. More than the limitations that you adjusted to. This version of you, you haven't fully met yet, right? This version of you is new, right? She's been there all along, or he's been there all along, but this version of you is waiting for you to feel safe enough again. Safe enough to love, safe enough to be loved, safe enough to finally become who you were always meant to be. But again, we have to start having these conversations about survival you versus becoming you. You know, if we take this a little bit deeper, right? Because I think this right here, again, is another spot where people get stuck. right? We want to grow. We say that we're healing. We say that we're evolving, but sometimes our decisions are still rooted in survival. And I'm not saying that to call you out. I'm saying it to wake you up, right? To bring awareness to it for you. Because survival you and becoming you move very differently. Survival you was focused on getting through it. Becoming you is focused on growing through it. Survival you says, let me just make it through this without conflict. Becoming you says, let me address this in a way that honors me, even if it's uncomfortable. Survival you tolerates what drains you because at least it's familiar. Like, at least I know what this is. But becoming you recognizes that familiar doesn't always mean healthy. Pellucid, welcome in, beautiful. Survival you stays in situations because it could be worse. But becoming you walks away immediately and says, nah, this still ain't right. And let's be real. That shift right there is not always easy. Going from this to that. Because survival you is built on patterns, right? We talked about those patterns yesterday. It knows what to expect. It knows how to navigate dysfunction. It knows how to survive disappointment and inconsistency and emotional instability. But becoming you is stepping into something new, right? Setting standards that your past didn't require. Making choices that your old environment didn't support. And so again, if we're being honest, that can feel like you're doing something wrong when really you're just doing something different, right? Let me break it down even more. Survival you says, I don't want to lose them, right? Butterfly, welcome in. Elevated Awakenings. Monique, Elevated Awakenings, welcome in, sis. So again, survival you says, I don't want to lose them. Becoming you says, I don't want to lose myself. Survival you says, I'll adjust so this works out. Becoming you says, if I have to keep adjusting, this might not be for me. Papa Smurf, welcome in, bro. Survival you says, I just need to keep the peace. Becoming you says, I'm out of here. I need to protect my peace. And, here's the part that might hit a little different. Some of y'all have mastered survival so well that becoming feels unnatural. Peace feels boring. Consistency feels suspicious. Healthy communication feels uncomfortable. Why? It's because your nervous system is used to chaos. It is used to the unpredictability. It is used to earning love instead of receiving love. So when things start to shift, naturally you start to question it, right? You're like, why does this feel weird? Why do I feel uncomfortable? Great new day, Blue. Right? Why do I still want to pull back? Why do I feel the desire to withdraw? And it's not because it's wrong. It's just simply because it's unfamiliar to you. You have grown used to the chaos. And I think that this is where growth requires awareness. Because if you're not careful, you will sabotage your becoming just to stay loyal to your survival. And again, I can speak firsthand to that because I was in survival mode for so long that when I got into a healthy relationship, I was self-sabotaging, right? I was sabotaging who I was becoming because I still at the time did not feel safe enough to love. I did not feel safe enough to be loved because I had been hurt. So what I knew is what it felt like to be hurt. What I knew was how to pick up the pieces and start over again. But like, what happens when people stop, breadcrumbing you with love and you actually start receiving it? Then it was like, I didn't know what to do with that. My husband was like, okay, just let me love you. And I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, say the word again, use it in a sentence. Love? Like, what does that really mean? And so I had to go through the process of learning how to be safe enough to love. And if you don't take the time to really truly sit with that, like if you're not careful, like I said, you'll sabotage your becoming just to stay loyal to your survival. You'll go back to what you know, even if it hurts you. You'll reconnect with what drains you. You'll lower your standards just so you feel comfortable in what you know again. And we're not doing that no more, right? We made that declaration to ourselves that we were healing by any means necessary this year. So we're not doing that anymore, right? Because Entelechy is not about staying where you feel familiar. It's about evolving into what aligns. Because we know if it don't align, I decline, right? Even if it stretches you, even if it challenges you, even if it requires you to move differently than you have before. So what I want to ask you honestly today is, to ask yourself this. Am I making decisions based upon who I've been or who I'm becoming? Because you can't step into a new version of yourself while you're still letting the old version make all of your choices. At some point, you have to trust the version of you that you're becoming, because that version of you knows what they're doing. Even if it feels uncomfortable right now, you have to understand that that's not confusion. That's just a transition, right? That is you shifting from survival into becoming. But we have to understand that becoming requires letting go of who you had to be. I think this is the part where healing stops being cute. This is where it starts getting real, because everybody loves the idea of becoming, right? We love the glow up, the peace, the confidence, the alignment. But nobody really talks about the grief that comes with that. Because in order to become who you were meant to be, you're going to have to let go of who you had to be. And that version of you, she's not weak. She's not embarrassing. She's not the old you in a disrespectful way. Because, honey, that version of you was a survivor. She was the version that got you through. She was the one that stayed when leaving felt impossible. She's the one that kept loving even when it wasn't reciprocated. She's the one that held everything together even when she was falling apart on the inside. So that version of you deserves honor. But she doesn't deserve permanence. And that's where the tension comes in. We want to honor her, like we want her to eat, we want her to be well, but we can no longer serve her at this table. And so again, there's this tension, right? Because letting go doesn't always feel like relief. Sometimes it feels like a loss. You might miss the version of you that tolerated more because that version of you kept certain people in your life. Maybe you miss that version of you because, that version of you that stayed quiet because that was the version of you that avoided conflict. You might even miss the version of you that overgave because at least you felt needed. Isladen, good evening. I think sometimes we confuse being needed with being loved. And part of becoming is realizing that you don't have to overextend yourself to earn a place in people's lives. But when you first start withdrawing, right? When you start choosing yourself, when you start saying this no longer works for me, it can feel like you're betraying the version of you that used to hold everything together. But I want you to know that you're not betraying her. You're freeing her. You're liberating her, right? You are giving her the rest that she never had. You're giving him the boundaries that he never felt safe enough to set. You're giving yourself the life that you've been too busy surviving in to create. And so that's not abandonment, that's evolution. But we have to understand that evolution requires release. And release doesn't always come easy. I've never sat here and told you guys that healing was easy. Never. Doesn't make sense. It's not. It's easy. It's hard as hell. It's not easy. It is hard as hell. Sometimes it looks like catching yourself mid-pattern and choosing differently. Sometimes it looks like walking away from a conversation that normally you would have stayed in. Sometimes it looks like no longer explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. And sometimes it looks like sitting with yourself in silence, realizing that you don't even recognize your own responses anymore because you're not reacting the same anymore. You're not tolerating the same. You're not shrinking the same. And so when you're in that season, things can feel a bit disorienting, but that's growth, right? That's what it looks like when you're shedding, when you're in that cocoon phase, right? And you're stripping away certain coping skills or survival skills because you recognize that you're no longer in survival mode. Becoming is not just about adding new habits or new mindsets. It's about releasing old identities, letting go of the fixer. RIP to the peacekeeper, right? The overgiver, the strong one who never needed anything, to the I'll just deal with it version of you. See, all of that has to be evaluated, not with judgment, but with awareness. Because Entelechy is not about dragging your old identity into your new life. It's about asking, does this version of me align with where I'm going? Or is this version of me rooted in what I've been through? And it's okay if parts of you are still catching up. It is okay if you are still learning how to release without guilt. It is okay if you are in that in-between space where you're no longer who you used to be, but you're still becoming who you were meant to be. Because that space right there is a sacred space. That's transformation. That's where the shift happens. So give yourself grace when it comes to letting go, because every single version of you had a purpose. Not every version of you is meant to stay, but that version had a purpose. And the more you release what no longer aligns, the more space that you create, the more room to breathe that you have. And that gives you space for who you're becoming. But again, you have to understand that you will outgrow people, you're going to outgrow places, and you're going to outgrow patterns. You have to. All right? So I'll tell you again, growth will change your relationships. I'm not saying that it might change your relationships. I'm not saying maybe it will change your relationships. I'm telling you that growth will change your relationships. Growth will adapt the ships around you. Companionships, relationships, friendships, all of those ships are going to shift. And I think that this is the part that people don't always prepare you for. Thank you so much. Right? This is the part that people don't always prepare you for, because everybody claps for your healing until it requires a different version of you that they're not used to. See, when you start becoming, your tolerance shifts. So those same conversations don't hit the same. The same environments don't feel the same. Elevated Awakenings, Tania, welcome back. The behaviors that you used to overlook, now they stand out clear. And see, as you continue to move through your healing process, it's like your vision starts to clear up. You start to see things differently now, because awareness changes, what you feel comfortable participating in. Thank you for the heart, me. I write books. Welcome in. Thank you for the roses. Tania, thank you for the heart posts. You just start seeing things differently now, right? Like, okay, let's talk about people first. Some relationships were built on the version of you that overgave, overextended, overexplained, right? The version of you that just did the most. And so when you start withdrawing, hey Tisha, welcome in, beautiful. When you start pulling back, when you start setting boundaries and you stop being as available as you used to be, people feel it. And not everybody is going to celebrate it. Some people are going to question you. Some people will guilt trip you. Some will try to remind you of who you used to be because that version of you was easier for them to process. So you know what they say, y'all. They tell you changed. You acting different. You brand new. You don't come around like you used to. But we have to stop looking at that, as a complaint. We have to stop taking that as criticism and start receiving that as confirmation. Because becoming requires you to show up differently, right? It requires you to show up differently. So if I'm on my healing journey and I'm over here growing and glowing and evolving, right? And then somebody pull up Pellucid and say, yeah, you acting funny. I'm gonna be like, thank you. You know this, thank you. You talk about this glow? What'd you talk about? Because tell me again. They'd be like, Coach, you acting brand new. I'll be like, I know, right? It's awesome. It feels great. Because again, I take it as confirmation. Because I know that becoming is going to require me to show up differently. So when the DOPs get to DOPing, honey, okay, I'll just be like, thank you for noticing. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I am growing. You hit the nail right on the head with that one, right? Because I know that the people who benefited from my old patterns, they're going to feel that shift the most, honey. Them DOPs, they going to get to talking, but I'm going to keep on walking. Still alive. Welcome in, Elevated Awakenings. A DOP. So let me tell you, Pellucid, a DOP, they my favorite kind of people. It's a special place in the world for the DOPs. A DOP is a disruptor of peace. Sometimes it's your family. Sometimes it's your kids. Sometimes it's your friends. Girl, DOPs come in many shapes, sizes. Listen, their sole purpose is just to disrupt your peace. Trey's mom, welcome in. Elevated Awakenings to you. So yeah, the DOPs are going to feel it. And they're going to tell you all the things. You acting brand new. You done switched up on us. You think you better than us. And I'll be like, well, I mean, you had the word better, right? I don't think that I'm better than you, but I definitely think I'm better than the me that I was yesterday. So thank you, right? Because I'm not offended when people say it anymore. It used to bother me, especially when my friends said it. When I first really started being intentional about my healing, my friends, like people that I never expected to say those things to me, started saying it. And I was just like, wow, this hurts. There were several sessions with my therapist where I was like, I don't know if I really want to do this. I'm losing friends. Like, I'm losing people. But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, everybody ain't meant to come with me. I've always loved the story about the reasons, the seasons, and the lifetime, referring to how people show up in your life. And every person that you meet, they will either be a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And when you think about that, some people show up in your life for a reason. They're here to deposit something or withdraw something to teach you this lesson, right? They show up for a reason in your life. And then once they've done their job, they're out. Sometimes like a thief in the night. They take what they supposed to come and take, teach you what they supposed to teach you, they out. Then you got some people who are seasonal, just like spring. They show up every year over and over again. Again, some withdraw, some deposit. But their purpose in your life is seasonal. And then you get some lifers, right? Those people who are with you till the very end. But you got to understand, sometimes those lifers are also withdrawing. Sometimes they're not always depositing. So when I look at that and I start getting, again, started in my intentional healing journey, because I started off in my healing journey and then I evolved to being intentional about my healing, right? I started healing on purpose. When I started doing that and I started losing people, I had to remind myself that maybe these people were here for a reason. They were here to help me through the trauma, right? They were here to support me through those moments, to get me to the point that I am today. But no one ever said that they were here forever. See, reason people, they're not just here for 90 days. Some reason people are in your life for 14 years and then they're gone. Some reason people are in your life for 30 years and then they're gone. The reason has passed. They're done. So we have to normalize releasing people. But I know it comes with the grief. And look, we don't even just have to talk about people. Let's talk about the places, right? Because as you're healing, there are going to be environments that once felt normal, but now feel draining. Spaces where you used to fit in, but now you feel out of place. And it's not because you're better, right? Not because you're better than them. It's because you're different. You're different now. Your mindset has shifted. Your priorities have shifted. Your energy has shifted. And what used to align no longer fits. But society tells us that that is rejection and it makes us feel bad. But it's not rejection. It is redirection. It is recalibration. It's like that GPS. You're headed somewhere. GPS tells you make a right. You miss the turn. She don't say, turn around, go home. This is over. We're not doing this. She says, okay, at the next light, make a U-turn. And instead of turning right now, I need you to turn left. Right? So it's not about rejection. It is redirection. It is recalibrating. And we can even talk about patterns, right? We talked about people, the places. There are also patterns. And see, patterns are tricky because they feel automatic, right? They've become habit. You're used to it, right? So the way that you respond, the way that you communicate, the way you attach yourself to people, or the way that you cope, right? Those are our patterns. And when you're in survival mode, you don't question those patterns. You rely on them. You depend on them, right? Those patterns become gospel for how you survive. But becoming will have you pause in mid-pattern and say, wait. Why do I do this? Why do I keep accepting this? Why do I keep tolerating the BS? Why do I keep responding in this way? Becoming means that now you're more aware. I'm not saying you know everything, but you know a little more than you used to. And once you're aware, you can't go back to being unconscious. Like you can't unsee it. You cannot unsee what you've already seen. You can't unknow what you already understand. You can deny it. You can try to avoid it. You can keep pretending that what hurts you isn't hurting you. But once you fully step into it, you can't unknow what you now understand. So now you're in this space where you don't fully fit into your old life anymore, but your new life is still forming. And that in-between space, oh, y'all, I can tell y'all that's probably one of the loneliest spaces. Because you're not who you used to be. And, the people who knew that version of you might not fully understand who you're becoming. But as lonely as it can feel, I want you to understand that you don't need to rush to fill that space with familiar chaos just because it's quiet. Don't Reconnect with what drains you because this current space feels unknown. Do not shrink yourself just to maintain access to people who only knew how to meet the old version of you. Because becoming requires space. Y'all show up every day in the room to breathe. In order to breathe, you need space. Space to grow, space to recalibrate, to recalculate, to realign. And yeah, sometimes that space feels like distance, but distance is not always disconnection, right? Sometimes distance is protection. I need you to give me 50 feet because I don't feel safe when you're in my space. Sometimes that distance is clarity. I need you to back up and move over there so I can think clearly over here, so I can see things for what they really are. And sometimes that distance is necessary, right? So if you've been feeling like you don't relate the same, you don't respond the same, you don't engage the same, I just want you to know you're not tripping, right? You're evolving. And evolution will naturally separate you from what no longer aligns. So instead of asking, why does everything feel different? Try asking, what is this season trying to realign me with? Because you're not losing everything. You're just releasing what can't grow with you. So that way you can fully step into your becoming. But becoming looks like boundaries, not just breakthroughs. Yes, Monique, setting boundaries. Because you cannot have breakthroughs without boundaries. And I think that a lot of people think that becoming is this big dramatic moment, right? Like one day you wake up healed and clear and confident, everything just falls into place. Yeah, no, it doesn't work that way. It's not how it works. Becoming is not one big breakthrough. Becoming is a series of small, consistent boundaries. And if we're being honest, boundaries don't always feel powerful. They don't feel magical. Sometimes they feel uncomfortable. They feel awkward. They feel like you're doing too much. Because a lot of times you're not used to choosing yourself like that. So a boundary can look like not answering the phone right away. Not over explaining your no. Not jumping to fix something that was never your responsibility because you know you ain't break it in the first place. Or maybe it looks like not giving access to people who have shown inconsistency. Sounds simple, right? But for somebody who's been used to being available and accommodating and overgiving, that is a whole internal battle. Yeah, it feels like you're doing something wrong. Because now, you're sitting here thinking, am I being rude? Am I doing too much? Am I pushing people away? Like, is it me? Am I the problem? But no, you're just repositioning yourself. And again, let's be clear, boundaries are not about controlling other people. Because, we know that you can't control how they act. You can't control how other people respond or how they feel about your growth. That's not your problem. Boundaries are about controlling your access, your energy, and your participation. It's like saying, I see you, I see what this is, but I'm choosing how I show up accordingly. Right? Roxy, welcome in. And, this is the part that people don't like to talk about because boundaries reveal people. The moment that you start setting boundaries and you start seeing clearly, you start to notice who respects them, right? Who respects your boundaries, who questions your boundaries, who ignores them, who's offended by them. And see, that information is valuable because it shows you who's aligned with the version that you're becoming and who was only comfortable with the version of you that had no limits. Because some people don't have a problem with you. They have a problem with your boundaries. They were fine when you were always available, always understanding, always adjusting. But now that you're saying that that don't work for me no more, now that you're telling them that I'm no longer available for that, I'm no longer entertaining that, I need something different. Oh, see, now there's tension. But that tension is not a sign that you're doing something wrong, right? It's a sign that something is shifting. It's a sign that you are growing, that you are evolving. Because the process of becoming requires structure. It requires discipline. It requires obedience. It requires standards. It requires you to decide what you will tolerate and what you won't tolerate moving forward. And we know that that is not always easy because sometimes boundaries come with consequences. So you might lose access to certain relationships. You might feel misunderstood. You might even feel guilty. But let me ask you this. What has your lack of boundaries been costing you? I mean, think about it. What has it been costing you not having boundaries? Your peace, your energy, your time, your self-respect? At some point, you have to decide, is keeping everybody comfortable worth abandoning myself? And let me just tell you, the answer should be no. Like I always say, there's no right or wrong, but the answer to this question should be no. Because becoming is not about being liked by everyone. It's about being aligned with yourself. It is about, for the first time, finally liking you. So yeah, we celebrate breakthroughs, but we don't overlook the quiet power of boundaries. The moments where you pause instead of react. The moments where you choose differently. The moments where you protect your peace even when it's uncomfortable. See, that's becoming, right? That is becoming. That is Entelechy in real time. And so for those of you who may have joined a little late, our word of the week is Entelechy. 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 Not loud. It's not performative. It is just intentional, aligned. It is just choosing yourself one boundary at a time. And I promise you, you are going to question yourself along the way, right? Let's just go ahead and normalize this part, because right here is where a lot of people think that they're doing something wrong, right? Anytime you're on this journey and you're trying to better yourself and you're trying to step into your becoming, right? You think that you're doing something wrong, but I want you to know that you're not. You're just in the middle of becoming. Because when you start moving differently and thinking differently and responding differently, you're going to question yourself. It is normal to question yourself. And I'm saying not once, not twice, but over and over and over again. You're going to have those moments where you sit there like, wait, was that too much? Should I have just let that go? Am I overreacting right now? You're going to be constantly asking yourself, why does this feel so uncomfortable? And the truth is, it is uncomfortable because it is new. You're stepping outside of patterns that once felt normal. You're choosing responses that your old self would have never chosen. You're setting boundaries that your old self never would have set. So, of course, it feels unfamiliar, but unfamiliar doesn't mean wrong. Let me say that again. Unfamiliar does not mean wrong. Sometimes unfamiliar means growth. Sometimes unfamiliar means finally doing something different. Sometimes unfamiliar means that you're no longer operating on autopilot. And that's a good thing. And let's go a little deeper. A lot of this questioning comes from internalized voices. Voices that were shaped by your past experiences. Right? The don't be too much. The keep the peace. The don't make a big deal about it. Or the just let it go. So now that you're speaking up for yourself, when you start choosing yourself and when you start saying, actually, this doesn't work for me, the voices inside get louder and they start trying to pull you back to what's familiar. Not because it's healthy, but it's because it's all it knows, right? It's known. And so now you're stuck in this internal tug of war. The part of you that's growing versus the part of you that's used to surviving. And that is a tension like no tension you have ever felt before. That's the work, right? That's where transformation happens, because now you have a choice to make. You can go back to what feels comfortable, or you can move forward with what's aligned. Even when it feels shaky, even when you're not fully confident yet, even when you are still trying to figure it out. And, confidence, right? Let's talk about confidence for a second. Confidence doesn't always come before action. Sometimes confidence is built through action, through choosing yourself, even when you're unsure, through standing 10 toes down and holding your boundary, even when your voice shakes as you deliver it. Sometimes it comes through walking away, even when a big part of you wants to stay. That's how trust is built. And when I'm talking about trust is built, I'm not talking about the trust between you and another person. I'm talking about that self-trust. The most important trust that there is, self-trust. Because every single time you choose alignment over comfort, you prove to yourself that I got me now. Right? And that right there changes everything. Y'all put I got me now in the chat. Because look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There will be moments where you slip. Moments where you go back to the old patterns. Moments where you second guess yourself and second guess your growth. Moments where you feel like, damn, I thought that I was past all of this. But just because you have those moments doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. Right? It means you're human. Because growth is not linear and becoming is not perfect. But you can choose today to have your own back. I got me now. I know that little Shantae had to survive some things, but guess what, girl? I got you now. I got me now. I'm going to carry you through this healing. And I know that it's layered because there's levels to this. It's going to be messy, but we done been through worse times. It's going to be real. So give yourself grace, right? Give yourself grace in the questioning, because questioning doesn't mean that you're lost. Sometimes questioning means that you're actually becoming more aware, more intentional, more aligned. So, if you find yourself asking, why am I so unsure about taking this next step? I want you to shift that question and try asking, what am I learning about myself in this moment? Is this an opportunity to choose differently? To trust me a little more? To plant my feet and stand, a little firmer? To grow a little deeper? And see, that's the process. That is Entelechy. Y'all put Entelechy in the chat again. Entelechy. Because listen, Entelechy, healing is not a straight line. It is not linear, right? But it's a journey of choosing yourself again and again and again, even when you're still learning how to. So a lot of times we think that we're not healing right. But we have to understand that healing is not a destination. It is a journey that we create along the way. It is a journey of choosing yourself again and again and again. It is like Groundhog's Day. Y'all know I tell y'all all the time, I live my life on repeat because I wake up every single day thankful and grateful to be in my right mind. I wake up every day choosing to be a better person than the person that I was yesterday. I wake up every single day choosing me. And I'm going to continue to do so every single day. Because the real version of me, the version of me that I'm becoming, requires consistency. Not perfection, consistency. And let's go ahead and talk about this real quick, y'all, because listen, this is where a lot of people give up on themselves. Not because they don't want to grow, but because they think that they're supposed to get everything right all the time. So can the perfectionist slide on up to the front row, please? Because I know you hiding out in the back thinking that I ain't doing this right. I can't be healing right. I don't know what self-care is. I don't know what I like. And I don't do it the way that she does it. And he talks about it a lot better. And I don't even know how to pray right. I don't know if I'm doing this meditation thing right. I don't know. I come to class, but then I feel like she's talking about me in class. And I tried to do this, but I don't feel nothing when it happens. Can y'all just come to the front, please? Because you out here questioning your whole journey. You thinking maybe I'm not as healed as I thought I was. Maybe I haven't really changed. Maybe I'm not, maybe I'm just like this. I'm broken. I'm defective. There's no help for me. Some of you are like, oh, I'm 50 something years old, 60 something, 70 something, 80 something. I'm too old for this. I can't do. Listen, Linda, listen. That is not the truth. That is your frustration talking, love. Because becoming is not about perfection. You cannot age out of healing. You are not too old to heal. You are not an old dog that can't learn new tricks. Just because you're not a spring chicken, honey, there is still life in you. There is still life in you. So you have to understand that becoming is not about perfection. It is about consistency. Consistency. Let me break it down, because I know me, I like to break it down. I want to break it down. Let me break it down. Listen, y'all. Perfection says I have to get this right every time, and if I don't, it don't count. Consistency says I'm gonna keep choosing better, even if I mess up, even if it's hard, even if I don't get it right. I'm gonna keep choosing better. That didn't speak to you? Okay, listen. Perfection says, if I mess it up, I failed. Consistency says, if I mess it up, I learn and I try again. Right? If at first I don't succeed, I'm going to dust myself off and try again. Perfection keeps you stuck in pressure. Consistency keeps you moving in progress. And we choose in progress. Because let's be real, there are going to be moments when you fall back into old habits. It is human nature. Get over it. We all do it. You are not alone. I am here with you. So there are going to be moments where you fall back into old habits. You might respond in a way that you thought unlearned, that you've been working on unlearning, but you're going to still crash out. Being healed or in your healing journey does not mean you are not going to crash out. I am still very much unhinged in certain situations. So you might overextend yourself when you've already set the boundary. You might entertain something that you said you were done with. Sometimes that means you're going to spin the block with old boy. It happened, right? We didn't all had the moments. And when you do have those moments, it is so easy to spiral, right? To start talking down on yourself, to start feeling like all your growth has disappeared. But I just want to remind you of something. One moment doesn't erase your progress. Do I have to say it again? One moment does not erase all of the progress. One misstep does not undo all of the healing that you have done to date. The difference between who you were and who you're becoming, it's not that you never slip up in the process. It's how you respond when you do. Old you would have stayed in the pattern. Old you would have justified it, ignored it, repeated it. But this becoming you, that version of you notices it. You sit with it. You reflect on it. And most importantly, you correct it. That's growth. That is awareness and action. Because becoming is not about pretending that you've arrived. We're not faking it until we make it, right? It's about committing to the process, day by day, choice by choice, moment by moment. And consistency is not always loud, and it is not always visible to other people. So don't let someone else tell you that you're not consistent because you're not healing the way that they expect you to. Because your healing doesn't look like what they thought it was supposed to look like. Sometimes consistency simply just looks like not responding to something that used to make you react immediately. Sometimes it's not engaging in conversations that drain you. Not explaining yourself to people who don't want to understand you. Consistency is quiet. It is internal, but don't mistake it because it is powerful. Because every single small decision that you make is shaping who you become. Even when nobody sees it. Even when it doesn't get acknowledged. Even when it feels small in the moment. Those small wins add up. And over time, the small, consistent choices that you make start to become your new normal. It becomes your new standard. It becomes your new identity. That is how Entelechy works. Not in one big moment, but in a series of intentional decisions that align with who you are becoming. So give yourself grace. Not an excuse, but show yourself some grace. Because again, grace says that I'm still growing and I am committed to doing better. Excuses say that's just how I am. And we're not doing that anymore. You are not stuck. You are not incapable. You are becoming. So the next time you have a moment where you don't get something right, don't you dare tear yourself down. I need for you to just simply pause, reflect, and adjust. Pause, reflect, and adjust. And then you keep going. Because the real you is not built on perfection. The real you is built on consistency. And listen, I know I'm over my time, but hear me out, y'all. I need for you to understand that you don't need permission to become who you were always meant to be. You don't need permission. There are a lot of people who stay stuck in situations longer than they have to. They stay stuck waiting for external validation, waiting for approval, waiting for somebody to say, yeah, you're ready now. You got this. But becoming doesn't work like that. You don't get a permission slip to evolve. There's no group vote on your healing. You don't get confirmation from everybody before you start choosing yourself. So if you're someone who's waiting for that, I'm sorry to tell you that you're going to be waiting forever. Because the truth is, not everybody is going to understand your becoming. Some people only knew the version of you that benefited them. The version of you that didn't have boundaries, and the version that overgave, and the version that showed up no matter how you felt. So as you start shifting, when you start saying no, and when you start choosing your peace over people pleasing, it's going to disrupt their comfort. And they'll say all the things, but you're supposed to change. You are supposed to evolve. We are not built to stay the same because growth requires change. Sometimes, It's not even other people that you're waiting on. Sometimes you're waiting on you. Like, I'm just going to put it out there. Sometimes you're waiting on you. You're waiting until you feel comfortable enough, until you've healed enough, until you're sure enough. But you fully step into your becoming when you step into your becoming. So I want to tell you this lovingly. That moment may never come the way that you expect it to, because confidence is not always the starting point. Sometimes confidence is the end result of you finally choosing you over and over and over again. Even when you're unsure, even when it's uncomfortable, even, when you're nervous, confidence is built. So if you're sitting here thinking that I'll start setting boundaries when I feel more confident, that I'll start choosing myself when I feel more ready, or I'll start showing up differently when I feel more sure, I'm just going to tell you flat out, you're delaying your own becoming. Because readiness does not always come first. The first step to healing is the decision to heal. You deciding that I'm not tolerating this anymore. You deciding that I'm not shrinking anymore. That I'm not abandoning myself to keep the peace anymore. You have to start by making the decision. If you want to heal, decide you want to heal. And then you start moving accordingly. That's where the shift happens. Some of y'all are holding back your growth because you're worried about how it's going to affect other people. You don't want to disappoint them. You don't want to lose them. You don't want to be misunderstood by them. And I get that. But let me ask you something. How long are you going to keep holding yourself small to keep everybody else comfortable? Because in case you don't know, it is costing you. And it is a heavy price that you are paying. You're sitting there abandoning your needs, silencing your voice, ignoring your intuition. And for what? To maintain a connection with people who are only connected to who you used to be? That's not sustainable. Not if you're serious about becoming. Because becoming requires you to choose alignment over approval, truth over comfort, growth over familiarity. And yeah, that might mean that some people don't get to come with you. It might mean that some people are going to misunderstand you. It might mean that there are going to be some doors that close. But not everyone is assigned to the version of you that you're becoming. And that's okay. Because the right people, they're not intimidated by your growth. They're not offended by your boundaries. They don't need you to shrink in order to stay connected. They meet you where you are. So stop asking for permission to evolve. Stop waiting for confirmation to choose yourself. Stop delaying your growth because it might make somebody else uncomfortable. This is your life. This is your healing, your journey, your evolution, your becoming. And Entelechy is personal. This is about me. It's not about being understood by everyone. It's about being aligned with yourself. So if something in you has been nudging you to move differently, to choose differently, to show up differently, trust that. That is not confusion. That is your calling. That is your purpose. That is what you are out here seeking. It is right there in front of you. That's the version of you that you've been becoming. Finally asking you to step forward. And you don't need permission to answer. I encourage you today not to rush to the next thing, not to scroll past the feeling, not to distract yourself from what came up for you in this conversation today. I encourage you to just sit with it. Breathe through it. Ask yourself, who am I becoming and what is still trying to keep me tied to who I used to be? Because if we're being real about it, it's not always the big things that's holding us back. Sometimes it's those small, quiet attachments. The comfort of familiar dysfunction, the old habits, the fear of what happens if I actually do change. Because change sounds good until it requires you to move differently. Until it requires you to stop answering certain phone calls. Stop explaining yourself. Stop shrinking. Stop overextending. Stop negotiating your worth just to keep connection. See, that's when it gets real. That's when you realize that becoming is not just about who you're stepping into. It's also about what you're willing to release in order to get there. What are you willing to sacrifice to heal? What are you willing to sacrifice to become? So today I want you to hear this with love. You cannot fully step into the next level while you're still negotiating your old identity. You have to let her go. You cannot keep one foot in who you used to be and the other foot in who you're becoming. You cannot sit on the fence. You cannot keep jumping back and forth over the line. You have to let her go. At some point, you have to choose. And I never said you had to do it perfectly. I never said it had to happen all at once. But you have to be intentional about what you choose. You have to be consistent over and over and over again. Because Entelechy reminds us that there is a version of you that already exists in potential. That version of you is not imaginary. It is not out of reach. It is not a one day I'll be there. That version of you is real. And every single time you choose alignment over comfort, every time you choose to honor your boundaries, every single time that you choose to trust yourself a little bit more, you get closer to her. You become her. Not overnight, but over time. So don't rush your becoming. Don't compare your process. We talked about comparison being the thief of joy. Don't do that. Don't beat yourself up for still learning, for still unlearning, for still trying to figure things out. The fact that you even question your old patterns says something. The fact that you're trying to choose differently says something. The fact that you are here listening to this podcast is saying something. You are already not where you used to be. And that matters. So today, we are not chasing perfection. We are choosing intention. We are choosing awareness. We are choosing alignment. But most importantly, we are doing the choosing. We are not waiting to be chosen. We are choosing one moment at a time, one decision at a time, one boundary at a time. So the affirmation that I have for you today is simple, but I want you to feel it. Our affirmation for today is, I am becoming the version of myself that my healing has been preparing me for. I am becoming the version of myself that my healing has been preparing me for. Say it again, y'all. I want you to mean it. I am becoming the version of myself that my healing has prepared me for. Now listen, if today's conversation hit home for you, go ahead and drop some green hearts in the comments. That is our community's way of saying I'm healing, I'm growing, and I'm showing up for me. Today, those green hearts mean I am becoming the version of myself that my healing has been preparing me for. Yeah, we waited our whole life for this, right? So let's step into this. And listen, before we close out, let me leave you all with a little extra love and light. As always, I am here to remind you to keep breathing. through the highs, the lows, and every moment in between. I want you to keep choosing peace, even if it feels out of reach. And know that here at the Self Care Club, you will always be seen, always valued, and always supported. So don't be afraid to take up space, speak your truth, and make a little room for you to breathe. I love each and every one of you to life. And I am praying that your day is not just amazing, but aligned, intentional, and yes, on purpose, filled with purpose. This has been another Room to Breathe podcast, and I look forward to connecting with you all again soon. Thank you.
Me, I